Hey there, welcome to Oman Runner. In today's video, I'm going to look at data. First, I'm going to look at type of running data I'm trying to capture, then look at some data devices, some data display, some data analysis, and finally, I'm going to look at some data accuracy. Regular viewers will know that I like data. I find it hard to just go out and run. I always have to have some sort of objective, some sort of reason. I just find it hard to just go out and just run along. And a lot of times, capturing data and analyzing data is what gets me going. In the early days of making the videos, a lot of the feedback I was giving on shoes, etc., was subjective. And I've been trying to make it a little bit more objective. I mean, I like the subjective bits, but you need to try and give some objectivity to it, and hence trying to capture the data. And so in this video, I'm going to look at the data I'm interested in and how I capture it, how I display it, and how I analyze it, and what could possibly go wrong. Lots as it happens. I'm old school, and back in the old school, we would measure distances on maps by taking out a piece of thread, measure a curve of the road or whatever the thing was that we were trying to measure, and then you'd measure that against a scale and you knew distance, and then with a basic clock, you knew time, and that gave you the basis of measuring your speed. We then moved on and we had a phone, and in my case you'd strap it on here initially. I don't like that as it happens, but that's what a lot of people did to start with. And then using a free app like Runkeeper or Map My Run or Strava, they all have free versions. You could get distance, time, pace, a few other metrics. And then when I went a bit further, I wanted heart rate, so I got the watch. And then I also wanted stride and cadence, and I started with the, this is probably my first delve into more advanced metrics, was in an Under Armour connected shoe. There's a Bluetooth chip in, and it's more accurate because it's on your foot, because it can tell a lot more. I think this one can tell foot angle, foot strike angle, all sorts of things. So the Under Armour system is very good. It's a very cheap, inexpensive way in because you're buying the shoe and the chip at the same time. They're about 140 bucks. You can get them cheaper. They do gazillions of different colors. But you're still limited to a small data set of shoes, and I like a lot of shoes. So then I got a Stryd Footpod, which is this little beauty, and it clips into your shoe, and so you can use it on any particular shoe. And it has other metrics. It's got all of the previous ones, but it's got ground contact time, vertical oscillation, leg spring stiffness, and a variety of other metrics, all of which I find interesting and I'm spending more time delving into. So you've got all the data, you're capturing it all, but how do you look at it? Well, it's very hard to see a phone when you're running. I mean, I've done it, I've stopped, I've had a look, I've run along holding it out a few times. Not ideal, particularly with the cost of a phone these days. Much easier to get a watch, you can see the display, and of course the display is live. So that allows you to adjust. So you see that you're not running as fast as you thought you were going, or you're too fast, or your heart rate's too high, or it's too low, whatever, you can adjust. And I've also used it certainly on Map My Run, where it's giving me voice commands, which is great if you, particularly when I was running with contact lenses, I couldn't see the dial so well. So voice commands, but being able to see it live is really useful. And of course, the ability to customize the data. So you can pick whatever you want on the phone or on the watch. You can see all sorts of different data. You might want heart rate, you might want stride, you might want cadence, you might want all sorts of things. And a good watch allows you to see them live. I use a variety of different devices at the moment. I use the Coros watch, I use an Apple Watch, I use a Garmin, and I use the Stryd Footpod and associated apps. Mid-run, I can look at the watch and I can see what's going on, and then immediately post-run, I can see various data on either of the various watches. I can see how fast I went, how far I went, probably how my pace was, all that sort of stuff. But if you want to analyze the data a bit further, then the next thing you're going to do is get on the old iPhone, and in this case, we'll have a quick look at the Coros app. So the first thing to say about the Coros app is that it's only available on the phone. Most of the other data sets are available on the phone and also on a web app, probably backed up onto cloud. The Coros app doesn't allow you to do that. You can only look at it on the phone. It's pretty good. I mean, I'm going to do a review between the Coros and the Garmin in a couple of weeks, but it's pretty good. But it does allow you to export to Strava. So if you want to keep the data, export to Strava. So I'm using this one here as my one KTT gut-busting runs I do to try and do a kilometre around the park. I'm testing a few things, so I'm exporting to Strava. And Con, thank you so much for the kudos for every time I run a kilometre. You can probably ease up. But it's nice to know someone cares. Anyway, so I can use the Coros, and as you can see all the data. It works very handily in portrait mode, and you can see the running power, the stride length. And then if you want to compare one to the other, you click into one and it'll flick to landscape, and then up at the top you can see pace. I'm going to click all of them against heart rate, against cadence, against stride length, against running power, against elevation. And then you can drag a slider across, so you can see at any point in time. So at this point in time, at 37 seconds, I was running 3 minutes and 43 seconds a kilometre. So it runs like that. And that data set is pretty useful. Not brilliantly useful, but it's pretty useful. What happens is when I'm trying to run a kilometre, I start and then I run through the kilometre, the beep goes off, then I stop the watch. It's usually a 1 kilometre and a bit. One of the wonderful things, Garmin has a Garmin Connect app on the phone. It has a limited data set. Actually, we'll flick through and have a look at the Garmin data set now. So let me just go on to Garmin and let's have a look. So here's the Garmin data set. One of the beauties of the Garmin one is I can go onto the web app and I can trim it back. So I trim it back so it's exactly a kilometre. It makes it much easier to see and view the data. All of the different devices have pros and cons. Even the one I really like to use is the Stryd web app. So in the Stryd web app, you've got all your data, and then you can literally segment any with a bit of sliders, and you can turn on and off different metrics, and you can compare even a tiny piece of time, or maybe half a kilometre, or 250 meters, or maybe you go the whole marathon, whatever you want, you can segment out, and I find that to be really useful. But all of them have interesting UX or user experience issues. So for some reason on Stryd, I'm particularly interested in, ironically enough, the stride length, and I think that's only available on the phone app rather than on the web. I'm sure that will be updated in a next release. One of the issues I've had with my Apple Watch, which I've mentioned before, is there's no dedicated stop button. It's a tremendously good watch for all sorts of things, but for stopping and starting isn't so bad. But stopping after a long run, if it's wet or you're being perspiring, sometimes you're tapping the screen like mad and it just won't stop. I've had to kill the whole watch a few times just to get the data to stop. There are 3 watches that work really well with Stryd. I mean, lots of the watches work, but that have native Stryd have training plans, and the ones that work natively, as far as I know, are Apple, Coros, and Garmin. And I've been trying to choose between a Garmin and a Coros. I went with the Coros first, and then from some issues which I'll tell you a bit further down, I ended up having all 3: the Garmin, the Apple, and the Coros. So let's look at some things that go wrong with data collection. I was running with my friend Liam, and we run from the house and we run kind of together, and we come back, and a couple of times we might have started our devices a bit further apart, but they seem to be a bit of a divergence, and I began to wonder about this. So when the Coros arrived, I thought, well, I'll do some checking. So I thought, well, how do I measure how accurate the watch is? Because I had these issues with the Stryd Footpod, and then I wondered about the watch. So I decided to go, there's a street over there called South Dock Street. It's a long, straight street, quite wide, low houses, very few trees. So GPS signal should be pretty good. So I went to both Map My Run and Mapometer on the web, and I measured the distance accurately from the ends of the footpaths, etc., at 290 meters. And I thought, okay, that should be reasonably accurate. So I went out with my Stryd and I measured. I walked up and I walked back and set 2 separate times, and it was 270 meters as against the 290 meters. I thought, that isn't looking good. It was consistent, but it was different. Then I went out in the Coros and I did the same, and I got very inconsistent data. You can probably see it here. And I realized there was something not quite tracking right with the Coros. Dave from Chase the Summit, who makes lots of really good running videos, he'd had to replace the first Coros watch he got. And also T3 had replaced their unit through faulty GPS. So I went back to Cotswold Outdoor. I bought it online at Cotswold Outdoor, but they had a store in Dublin, brought it back, explained what happened. They replaced without the slightest bother. So that was pretty good. Meantime, I had no watch and I was running a marathon the following week. So I went up to Run Hub and I got myself the Garmin. Again, same. This is Garmin Forerunner 55. This is Coros Pace 2. They're both about €200. I'll do a detailed analysis. But pretty similar watches. And so I went out and I did the same test again. And the Garmin bang on 290 meters both times. So I was preparing for the upcoming marathon. Then this replacement, the Coros Pace 2 arrived. And I wanted to run this on the marathon. I did a bit of checking, doing the same thing, was pretty convinced of its accuracy, and away we went. And after went down to do the marathon with my friend Paul, and Westmeath to it was Mullingar to Athlone, or Athlone to Mullingar, and it said it was 42.2. And then Paul measured it with a Garmin, and it was one of the reasons I knew Paul was running a Garmin. I'd be running with a Coros. He measured the course with his Garmin. When I finished the 42.2, I was about 20 feet away from what his was. And of course, any run is inconsistent. You can zigzag. Even a marathon course, I'm running Chicago Marathon. I know that there's a set way to minimize the route, or there's running around all the guys who are stationary and taking cups of water and clipping the curbs and all that sort of stuff. So there's always some inconsistencies. But after the run with Paul, and along the way, I'd had this issue where I had tried to calibrate the Stryd. It ended up at it was telling me it was 5k to go on the Stryd through the Apple Watch, and it was telling me 7 on the Coros. I went to I ended up stopping, taking out the phone, looking at Google Maps. It said 7, and off I went. So after the marathon, I was talking to Paul, and I wanted to get something more accurate. I had previously tried to find, I'd looked on the web to find a measured kilometre in Dublin. I couldn't find one. I went up to Phoenix Park where I thought there'd be some. I looked at the old mile markers, but some of them were not there. Some of them might have been moved. Somebody said there was something at Dunor Harriers. I went over there, had a look, couldn't find anything. So I decided, in talking to Paul, to borrow this. This is a surveyor's wheel, and it's a really simple little device. It rolls along, and you see it there. There's a little counter in here, and you roll along. You reset it here. It's at 0, and then you wheel this thing along, dun, 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 and it measures. And so I took that out on the way to the south wall, and I measured 500 meters in a straight line. Now, the wheel needs to be on a smooth surface, because if it's on something that's bumpy, well then obviously the wheel is going to rotate in the air, etc. So you want to keep it hard on the ground, go in a straight line, and I set my Coros watch to that and also to the Stryd, and then compared the results. I was kind of shocked at the results. I suppose I was shocked and I wasn't surprised, but I mean, I knew there was an inaccuracy. I wasn't totally sure what, but I went out with the surveyor's wheel and I measured 500 meters with the surveyor's wheel. On the Coros, it measured 500 meters exactly. On the Stryd, it said it was 480 meters. Now that's 4% of a discrepancy. Now 4% over the distance of a marathon is a mile. So imagine you ran a marathon or two, and you ran an extra mile. You might be like, anyway, I think that that's an unacceptable deviation. 4% is too high. I contacted Stryd. They seemed completely blasé about it. Well, just set the calibration factor on the watch, because I'm going to pair it with the Coros watch. I don't think that's good enough. I think if you're selling something that you can't get within 4%, just say that. Say, look, we make stuff that's it's not as accurate as you might like, so just buy yourself a wheel and go out and measure it, or find an accurate thing and then calibrate it, and you'll be grand. Not sort of buried way down as, sometimes a small manufacturing intolerances. No, if you can't manufacture something to the right standard, then say so up front. Say, look, the first thing you must do when you get this device is calibrate it. Or alternatively, when someone rings up or emails and says, look, there's something wrong, and you say it's 4%, say, look, we're really sorry, this didn't come within our standards. Here's a new one. The mind boggles. It's got to be better than that. At the start of this video, I asked, how accurate is your running data? And based on my experience and my measurements, not very. You shouldn't have to, but you do. You need to go out and do your own independent checks of your GPS, your Stryd, whatever it is that you're doing as a measurement. You need to do that. As you get older, I find one of the things is I spend more of my time thinking about time. All of the time, where did it all go? What did I do? What could I have done better? And how much of this stuff which is quantifiable, is left, which is not as easily quantifiable. And so time is important to me. I only get to visit Earth once. Jeff Bezos is probably going to visit twice if he gets up and back okay. The worst thing you can do is waste my time. For me, that's the worst thing anyone can do. And Stryd, for the last year, you've been wasting my time. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you did, it'd be great if you hit the like button. As always, there'll be lots of stuff in the description below, and I'll happily answer any questions you pop into the comment section. There'll be a blue subscribe button popping up there, and some related videos there. Thanks for watching. Until next video, just keep running along. And I hope I haven't been wasting all of yours watching this.